to working together with you on that. We have other partners here. And before I close, I want to just recognize again our minister, Waziri Honorable Lee Kenyanjui, who's brought, I hope, renewable energy to our partnership and has challenged us to do more. So we are here and we are ready to partner and do more and work with all of you. UNIDO remains committed to supporting Kenya's leadership in climate action, industrial innovation, and economic transformation. We also have a booth, and in our booth, we are hosting today the East Africa School of Coffee. Rafael, sitting with my staff, but not one of my staff. They're offering free coffee. I'm sure they will get us a lot of people. So, Waziri, when you, after this event, if you want to relax with a good coffee, we will be very happy to host you. Together, let us build a manufacturing sector that generates jobs and income for women, vijana, and rural population in Kenya, that uplifts communities out of poverty, protects the environment, and drive prosperity for generations to come. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Thank you, Tali, for the passion to make sure that Kenya is inclusive and highly industrialized. And the inclusivity starts with Juakali sector. Kirdi has been challenged there, KAM has been challenged, and we are ready to take up the challenge. That's why we are having this conference, to challenge one another and to bring innovations and also ideas that can help us make progress collaboratively. So thank you for that. Next, I'd like to first recognize the sponsors. Yesterday, we recognized the sponsors for the exhibition, the Changamka Festival, which means let's celebrate, let's be excited, let's inspire one another to move forward, those who know the word Changamka. And we also have sponsors for the conference through the State Department of Industry, and we wish to acknowledge each one of them. So I'll mention the name and you clap for them, please. We have Kenya Bureau of Standards, a big hand clap for KEBS, commonly known as KEBS. The second sponsor, Numerical Machining Complex, a big hand clap for them. East African Portland Cement, a big hand clap for them also. We have Kenya Leather Development Council, we clap for them also. We have Isuzu East Africa, a big hand clap for them. We have a National Research Fund, let's clap for them. We have the Scrap Metal Council, a big hand clap for them. The National Social Security Fund, let's clap for them. The Kenya Development Council, a big hand clap for them. Anti-Counterfeit Authority, let's clap for them. I hope there will be a big topic on counterfeit. We were just saying if we just reduce counterfeit by just 50%, our economy would change drastically. So that's a big issue for us also. And lastly, Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, a big hand clap for them. We thank the sponsors for standing with us for this conference. And without much ado, I'd like to invite next Mr. Njora Karanja, who will give a brief remarks on behalf of the PS, State Department of Industry. He's the Secretary for Administration, and thereafter he'll invite our chief guest to give the keynote address and launch this conference officially. Thank you.
Asante. Our chief guest, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, KAM leadership, our development partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is with great honor and privilege to welcome you to this important occasion, the 3rd Kenya Industrialization Conference and the 8th edition of Manufacturing Summit and Expo. Guided by our theme, driving Kenya's manufacturing competitiveness through inclusive, sustainable industrialization, economic diversification, and trade partnership, this conference provides timely platform for government, industry, and development partners to reflect on Kenya's industrialization progress, share insights, showcase innovations, and chart practical pathways for accelerating manufacturing growth and competitiveness. Industrialization remains a cornerstone of Kenya's economic transformation. The government continues to advance the targeted initiatives such as county aggregation and industrial parks programs, Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, local content development, and micro, small, and medium enterprise empowerment, while strengthening value chains across key sectors including agro-processing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, textiles, and green manufacturing. These initiatives are firmly anchored in Kenya Vision 2030, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the National Industrialization Policy Framework, and regional commitments, all aimed at enhancing productive capacity, boosting exports, and generating quality employment opportunities. Today's conference reaffirms our collective resolve to build a globally competitive and inclusive industrial ecosystem, one that harnesses innovation, sustainability, and regional trade integration to position Kenya as a manufacturing hub for Africa. I warmly welcome you all to engage, exchange ideas, and explore partnership that will accelerate the realization of our national industrial goals. Asanteni sana. May I now take this opportunity to invite our chief guest, the Cabinet Secretary, to come and address this important gathering. Karibu Waziri. Let us put our heart together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So allow me to take this opportunity first to recognize all the players in the industry who are here, the Chamber of Commerce, CAM, and KEPSA. We have our development partners, UNIDO. I think they've just made a wonderful contribution here. Industry players, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are here today first to reflect on our journey towards industrialization, to appreciate some of the strides we have made, but also, more importantly, to also ensure that the momentum we have created is sustained, coordinated, and that we are able to absorb the jobs we want for the economy. So I want to say that, as we all know, the government places a huge importance on all activities that go towards creating employment, forex, and also stability in the economy. And I want to say this because one of the assured ways of creating sustainable jobs is through industry. There are other ways we can create jobs, but it is temporary and in the short run. But when it comes to industry, these are sustainable jobs. So we believe if we are to absorb our young people, the youth, coming from our education, our tertiary institutions, then this conference is the right place to articulate those issues. And I want to also thank all the players who have supported us in making this event a success, and also in aligning with other global practice as we continue with the journey. So I think the first thing we wish to note is that if Kenya continues with the current economic growth of typical 5, maybe 6% when it is good, it will probably take another maybe 50 years before we can be able to absorb our young people. And as we all know, the youth explosion is a very, very big concern to all of us. So for us to be able to make good progress, therefore, we have thought that certain policy alignments may be necessary. These policy alignments are geared towards first creating demand, two, saving the forex, and creating sustainable jobs. And I want to go through a few of them. First one is in the area of the auto industry. As we probably know, Kenya is one of the biggest homes for used cars. In fact, I remember early in the year we visited Japan, and I was surprised to learn that about 7,000 vehicles are imported per month to our port. So when you import a full car, it means you've imported everything from tires to mats to everything you can imagine. Not to mention that even when it comes to the new cars, they are all also imported. Most of them 100% made outside. A few of them, like matatus and trucks, there is a local component. And therefore, working with the experts in this area, we are developing, or we have developed the auto policy that seeks to support industries or value chains within the auto industry, so that vehicles that are 100% from outside will attract a different tax regime than vehicles that have maybe 30–40% local content. And this way, we will create industries all the way down, doing exhaust, doing tires, and allow me at this stage also to say that following some of these policy considerations, one of the fourth biggest tire making factory in the world is called Linglong, is setting base in Mombasa. So if we continue with that momentum, then we will have more and more of the auto part making industries coming into Kenya. And we will be working towards supporting those who are already here and even other foreign companies that want to come. And we don't want to make Kenya the easy market for goods manufactured out there, while taking little consideration into our local input. So the auto industry is one key area where we think we can employ the people. Just about a month ago, I visited the motor vehicle assembly in Thika. The electric buses that you see on our roads today are assembled here in Kenya. Now, one important thing is that out of a near demand of 100 vehicles every month, we are only able to do about 10 to 15. So we want to upscale the Kenya vehicle assembly plant and also to work towards increasing the local inputs and support that whole value chain. You may also recall that earlier in the year, His Excellency the President did visit Japan, and one of the outcomes of that particular visit was a samurai bond. And this is going to facilitate the funding of auto industries or industries that will come towards the manufacture of auto parts. So if you want to start a factory to manufacture exhausts, batteries, bolts, nuts, chairs, doors, then the government is going to provide a fund where you can come and borrow some 200 million, get certified, and start manufacturing so that you can be able to input into the auto industry. So that is a major policy step that we have taken, and our belief is that it is going to change the landscape completely, where batteries are made in Kenya, tires are made in Kenya, and all the other components as we move forward. The other area we are looking at is the textile industry. I know the challenge has been thrown out here as to all the people with the local made in Kenya to stand, and as you can see, maybe 10% or less. And of the 10%, if we did an integrity test, the number could even get lower. So I think the point you're trying to say, the truth is we have not succeeded in making or clothing Kenya. And that is a conversation we need to have a serious discussion around. But again, we have the textile policy, and we're working together with the Ministry of Agriculture, because every textile conversation must begin with the cotton. So many years ago we grew cotton, but along the way we lost the steam. But the important part is that from last year and this year, there is a deliberate attempt to revive cotton growing. Just around May this year, I was in Lamu, where we were providing seedlings to farmers so that now we can start our granaries, and together we can be able to revive the necessary inputs for the textile industry. But we are also aware that textile is not all about cotton. There's polyester and other sources. So again, within the petrochemical and other inputs necessary, that conversation is already going on. You may be aware also that the Rivertex factory has already been privatized, and the company that has taken Rivertex is one of the biggest in West Africa, and we believe in the next 1 year we'll have now increased demand for our cotton, and we can start producing our clothes. So the few hands that went up are going to go further, are going to grow if we now put those incentives. So for the textile, I think something good is happening, and beyond what is happening in Eldoret and the Rivertex, we also think we can work in other areas, including Kitui, which is a good cotton growing area. And again, we'll be able to plug in all these people who have studied manufacturing, designers of clothes, and so on and so forth. Allow me also to touch on the area of leather. We have mentioned that we would want to produce more in Kenya, including, for example, vehicles. I think one of the areas where we can benefit is also leather. Leather is an input product in auto manufacture for chairs, for the dashboard, and all those things. So if we make our vehicles here, we also create demand for our leather. We also must look at our shoes. We also look at value addition. I know in the past we have exported raw hides, and that is a very serious challenge. Actually, it's suicidal to even think like that. So through the Kenya Leather Development Council, we are currently trying to reconfigure, and we'll be having a leather conference later this month. And the whole purpose of that whole conversation is to try and align, to make sure that we have an industrial park with incentives for anybody who is in the leather value addition. And government is going to put funding into that particular space so that we can increase both the uptake of the skins and hides, and also to create industries that can do the value addition. Allow me to say that Kenya has the second biggest herd really in the continent. We are also a serious nyamachoma nation. However, what happens to the skin after we eat the meat remains a mystery. And part of it has to do with how we slaughter the animals. There is a lot of wastage. The focus is on the meat, not on the skin. Yet the reality is that the skin is even more expensive and of more value than the meat. And for that reason, we are also reconsidering export of live animals, because when you export live animals, you also export and you kill the leather industry. So these are some of the policy considerations we are working, and we believe that leather can help the country to move to the next level. And most significantly also is the fact that where you have animals in good numbers in the Maasai growing areas, Kajiado, Narok, Samburu, in the northeastern parts of the country, these are areas where this is the dominant economic activity. So if you're able to create value around the leather value chain, then we create livelihoods that can support these people. And therefore, this is a very critical space that you want to work on. Allow me also to touch on another critical policy intervention. And this is in the area of pharmacy, or pharmaceutical products. We all know that nearly 80% of our pharmaceutical products are actually imported, and we consider this number to be inconsistent with our investment in research, in industry, and also the potential that Kenya has within the region and also in Africa. And therefore, we are trying to see how we can reconfigure if we must import our pharmaceutical products, then we need to import them at the active ingredient level so that when they're imported here, we can do the formulation here, we can brand here, and we can be able to sell into the region. This would create hundreds of industries that would be in the packaging space, would be in the formulation, and all the other areas. And we believe this is an area we can work with the private sector, together with the banks, because eventually we need to fund some of these programs. And I believe this would help us to reduce part of our trade deficit. One of the leading countries in this pharmaceutical sourcing is actually India. And our balance of trade is 1 trillion in favor of India. This is not sustainable because we are literally importing pharmaceuticals when they are formulated. So in your typical sort of consignment, the active ingredient is 5%, the rest is starch and water. So we are importing what we can do here. So we can be able to create demand for our cassava, sweet potato, and any other starch you want to imagine, and also create a value here. So again, an invitation to the sector players so that we can align policy and investment in this area to create jobs and save on forex. Lastly, you will recall that early last week, His Excellency the President made a policy declaration in the area of furniture that we want to discourage importation of furniture and support local manufacturers of furniture, because what we have found is that our timber across most of our forests is used for low value, you know, for construction, for poles and all those things. But the actual value is actually in the furniture, in the tables and the chairs and all that. And to that extent, I want to confirm that I have had like 5 major companies from out of this country saying we have had the declaration by the president and we would want to take advantage of that. So some of these policy interventions will have a long-term implication in job creation and saving on forex. And we also want to urge Kenyans to be in the forefront so that we can turn around the joblessness and the hopelessness that sometimes has engulfed the young population. Lastly also, we are working with the Ministry of Education and specifically with our tertiary institutions to ensure that we align the training with the needs of the industry. If we want to create the textile industry, for example, our young people must learn how to design, create fashion, and create clothes that can be able to compete both locally, regionally, and across the whole world. So that whole creative industry around fashion, there is space for you. If you want to think of those who've done industrial engineering, there is space for you. So we need also to align our tertiary institutions so that we can produce the necessary manpower for us to support our industries. We have also come up with special economic zones, and I think these are critical centers to attract investment with clear incentives. And I want to say that we celebrate the special economic zones, because a lot of the business people and industrialists and investors who want to come into Kenya, including those who are already here, the incentives you offer under the special economic zones are significantly higher than otherwise would be outside our special economic zones. And I believe in the next 5 or 6 years, this will be the engine of growth for the country. And because they are in all places from Mombasa to Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, Kericho, and all these other places, then it means we're also going to spread the industrial growth across the whole country. And also to call upon Kenyans who want to do value addition. We have also gone the next step lower to have the KIPES, the County Integration Centers, because previously if you wanted to do any value addition, you had to buy land, change land user, get the road, bring the power there, but now government has done all that. You can just come, lease the go downs, lease the cold rooms, do your value addition, and focus on the markets and production, because government has taken care of all that. And I'm happy to note of the 47 KIPES that the government was planning, about 13 are at an advanced stage. In fact, I would say about 4 are already taking up applications. So again, we welcome you and invite you to take part in this very critical milestone in our industrialization journey. You may also be aware that Kenya has been in trade negotiations with different countries across the world. Some of the negotiations have been complete, including, for example, the United Arab Emirates, which is a key destination for our meat products, our floriculture, and horticulture. And we have seen this to be one of our fastest growing markets. Again, there is need for us to connect those markets with the industries back at home. And there are many opportunities for any industry that hopes to come to Kenya, because when you open markets in the European Union, in the US market, in the UAE, in the Far East, then it means as you produce from Kenya, then you have huge opportunities to participate in all these markets. So again, the trade agreements we've already entered into, the bilateral conversations that keep going on, and many of which have reached fruition, is a huge opportunity for the industries here in Kenya. You will recall about 3 weeks ago, we also had the COMESA summit here, and during the COMESA, the president was taking over the chairmanship of COMESA, which is a 21-nation bloc. And we want to take the opportunity where Kenya is leading COMESA to open up the COMESA market. And this is a huge market, a market where we can sell our products, where we can open borders so that our people can trade for this whole area. And therefore, both the government, the private sector, and all of us have a role to ensure that we play our rightful role within the COMESA region. In the EAC, again, Kenya is a key member of the EAC. Our leading export market is actually within the EAC, and I'm happy to note that some of the Kenyan brands are very, very popular within the region. But we still believe, in spite of that, much more can be done, and we'll be working together with the industries in Kenya to see how we can increase our foothold within the East African market. I know there are a few issues that had been raised around trade within the EAC, and part of it included the logistics, the cross-border logistics. Sometimes in Malaba and Busia, it would take you typically a day, sometimes 10 hours or so before a truck can cross over. But recently, working together with our partners, including Trademark, we have aligned the border crossing, reduced the bureaucracy that was there, and our target is to ensure that within 1 hour, a truck can arrive, get cleared, and cross over to Uganda or any other country. Because when we delay a truck for a whole day at the border, we are actually becoming obstacles to trade and industry. And I want to thank all those who have been part of that conversation. It has been mentioned here that there were challenges in the last 1 week in our neighboring country. And I think it's important for us as Kenya to appreciate that the countries that border you are very important. When they are at peace, you can be able to trade better, you can be able to invest, and there are very many Kenyans who are in Tanzania. So the stability and peace in Tanzania is a matter of great concern to Kenya. And we will continue to hope that things normalize, and Kenya would want to have a stable environment where both trade and investment can happen without interruptions. Early in the year, I was talking to the Minister for Trade from Egypt. And as you can imagine, Egypt is surrounded by Libya on one side, you have Gaza on the other side, and a few other countries that are around there. And over 10% of their population is actually from people fleeing from their neighboring countries. That becomes a very huge burden. So Kenya is interested in the peace and security of every other nation around. And it is for that reason, whether it is in Somalia, in Southern Sudan, or any other country, we always want to take a proactive position so that we can't be at peace when there is no peace across the border. But we believe that these are short-term interruptions, and they do not reflect the long-term dynamics of the region. Lastly, you may be aware that energy has been cited as a long-standing unresolved matter, both in terms of costs and sometimes availability. And for this reason, the government is working towards both increasing power available for industry and also on the issue of costs. However, I wish to note that on the area of energy mix, Kenya remains one of the few countries with very high green input, renewable energy. And this is an area we want to continue leadership. And I want to celebrate a few companies that have come in Kenya in recent days, some of them to set up companies for solar. So again, we are encouraging factories and industries. As you set up your industry, let us think about sustainable energy, using solar, using wind, and all the other options that are available. Allow me to end by addressing finance, because I think also finance is a critical aspect of our industry. And just to confirm that in my recent discussion with some of the bankers, I challenged them to give me the percentage of their finance to industry as a percentage of the entire portfolio. It was in the range of 4 to 5%. So if you go today and you want to get finance to import stuff from China or any other country, and you pay by next month when the goods arrive, the bank will process your application very fast. If you come and say you want to set up an industry to process, to buy equipment and all do that, you'll be required to bring 1,001 documents. So Kenya cannot progress if banks don't support industry. So we can support importation, but that's just quick money and the deal is over. But if you support an industry that employs 1,000 people, 2,000 people, those jobs will be there even in 10 years from now. So I think there must be a reconfiguration of how we perceive industry, how we want to work with startups or any other people who want to venture into industry. And maybe as we move forward, maybe working also with central bank to see how we can encourage and put clear incentive for banks to be able to look at financing and long-term finance for that particular matter for industry. Most of the industry that have been started have largely been started by owner funds, family funds, and the reality is that no country can grow without long-term finance. I'm happy to note that through the government, the president has directed that KDC, we are trying to restructure KDC and also to look for funds so that anybody who wants to invest in long-term industry has a place they can go. But this is a journey we can work together with our commercial banks, and together we can be able to move forward. I don't want to go beyond that. I want to thank all of you who are part of this industrial conversation together with the media, and to assure you that the government is committed towards looking at the foundational challenges that have held us back, and more importantly, coming up with solutions that will help us to move to the next level. I thank you.
A big hand to our Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Lee Kinyanjui. We can also stand to stretch. I know you've been sitting for a long time. We can just stand to appreciate the goodwill and the commitment to drive industrialization forward, witnessed and spoken by our Cabinet Secretary. Please allow us to indulge, you may sit, allow us to move to the next session where we'll have Mr. Brian O'Brien Kimani, Senior Business Journalist, who will moderate this session. And the high-level dialogue will be about manufacturing competitiveness in Kenya, focusing on increasing manufacturing GDP, exports, and attracting investments. Please indulge us. I know some of you have already had tea, so we'll skip that session. Those who feel they need to take a short break, you do so, but let's please give attention to this session where we'll have also a Cabinet Secretary answering to some of your questions. Mr. Kimani, thank you.
Good afternoon. No, you can do better. Good afternoon. Let's put our hands together for and Jogu for such a beautiful job. And of course, for all the speakers who have stood here, thank you. Of course, to enumerate Kenya's industrialization agenda. I want to take you back to the year 2007, and we were seated here in this hall, and the country was in the process of crafting Vision 2030. And I remember vividly, I was an upcoming journalist, and I was seated amongst the people who were here. And I remember the words of the former Minister of Finance and the former Minister for Trade. Back then, we used to call them ministers. At that time, the Minister for Finance was the former President, Uhuru Kenyatta. And he said that if we don't stop the talk and we do the work, we're going to spend another 30 years aspiring to be a newly industrialized nation. That is what the former President Uhuru Kenyatta said when we were seated here. And he was supported by Muhisa Kitui Doctor, who was the Minister for Trade. And he said, we need to accelerate our pace of implementing our policies. And today, we are back here again to discuss how to develop Kenya's industrialization journey, how to enhance that journey, and how to ensure that we move together as a country. About 3 weeks ago, we were here under COMESA, and we're also discussing how we can improve intra-Africa trade, which currently stands at a meager 14%. That is the kind of conversation that we are going to have here, and I am glad that the CS has outlined various policy interventions that the government is putting in place to ensure that we enhance our industrialization journey. And of course, Vision 2030 is 5 years from now. The question is, are we going to be a newly industrialized nation as that document dictates? So this afternoon, we're going to have a very interesting conversation. I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell them, get ready for an interesting conversation. If they look hostile, don't move too close. We don't want you to get injured. Just tell them from a distance, we're about to get into an interesting conversation. And Anne Jogu reminded us that, and of course, that you need a representative very enthusiastic about Kenyan products. And I was ashamed that we are not wearing Kenya. I hope from today moving forward, we'll start wearing Kenya. And I remember the good old motto of buy Kenya. No, come on, let's do it better. Buy Kenya. Remember there is lunch, and it can be cancelled at this moment if we don't respond with a lot of vigor. Buy Kenya. Tununue Kenya. Tujenge Kenya. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we just want now to move to the next stage. There is a slight change in terms of programming. We're going to go into a quick conversation because the CES, together with Kenya Association of Manufacturers CEO, they need to move to the booth so that they can have a quick look at what Kenyan manufacturers are, of course, offering to the world. And so we're going to have a quick Q&A session or a panel of discussion, which is going to be conducted here. So we're going to come up from here and go down there so that we can have this quick conversation. And so without further ado, allow me to invite the Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry to kindly go down, take your position, followed by Mr. Tobias Orlando, the CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Dr. Robbie M. Kinga, the CEO of Anti-Counterfeit Agency. We also have Mr. Panket Bedi, he's the chair for the EPZ Apparel and Textile, and a board member of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. If I were you, I would put my hands together for these people because they have spared very good time to be with us this afternoon. We're also going to have Musai Konyiha. Are you in the building? Musai Konyiha. He's the CEO of CKL Africa Limited. CKL stands for Coopers Kenya Limited. Do we have you in the building? Unfortunately, we don't. We're also going to have Dr. Fred Wasike, Director, Human Resources and Corporate Sustainability at Isuzu East Africa. Do we have you in the house? Yes, there he goes. Thank you very much. Who else do we have in this building? Do we also have Caro Karaoke, the CEO of Kenya Private Sector Alliance? Do we have Caro Karaoke or representative in the building? Are you here? Going for one, twice, thrice gone. Thank you. And Mr. Darshan Chandaria, the group CEO of Chandaria Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerate in Kenya. Do we have Chandaria in the building? Very good. We move on with that. Allow me also to go down so that I can also join them. And as I do that, why don't you put some hands for Brian? Thank you. We are going to start with Buona CS. Kindly enumerate for us what the government is doing to enhance trade to Africa.
So thank you, Brian. First is to say that trade within Africa is the lowest in the entire globe. Intra-trade in Africa is the lowest in the entire globe. Europe at nearly 70%. Intra-Africa at 17%. So we are buying more from outside than we are buying from ourselves. So that realization is important because poor nations must realize that part of creating opportunities and job lies in utilizing the market that they already have. So what have we done as Kenya? I think first, you may recall that the president said that for anybody arriving from any African country, you need no visa, because there can be no trading when people are not free to move. And I want to confirm that that policy direction has had a major impact on trade and Kenya's competitiveness. So I would say that's the first thing, because people have to come, like the country, then they can be able to take up or even to buy something from Kenya. Secondly is making our borders competitive so that whenever you want to move product from one place to the other, including infrastructure. If you don't have roads to your borders, then you have no way of getting your goods there. So our ports, our border posts, I think all those areas is something that we've worked. Efficiency of Mombasa Port as a leading destination for East Africa and beyond. I think that is also another area we have worked to ensure that there's efficiency and that the turnaround time of ships docking into Mombasa is most efficient, so that we also reduce the damage and other associated costs. The other area is in attracting investment, because although we have said that 17% is intra-Africa trade, we need to ask, do we have the products to sell to Africa? Do we have those pharmaceutical products, the textiles, the cars, even military hardware to sell to African countries? And the answer is that that has not been there. And therefore, the setup of the special economic zones and the EPZAs and all the other incentives that the government is doing is to try and create the product upon which now we can sell. Using the existing trade platforms, including the AFCFTA, Kenya is a leading and respected member, and we are working to ensure that Kenyan products are promoted outside. You will remember that through KEPROBA, we have participated in a number of trade fairs across the continent, and we also facilitate SMEs so that they can participate in showcasing their products and linking them to markets across the country. Next year, we'll be holding an investment and trade forum in March, and I think this is also part of trying to open up Kenya for trade across the continent. Thank you.
I mean, if you have been very keen, the CS has mentioned competitiveness 3 times in the 5 minutes that he has spoken. He has also talked about enhancing. He has mentioned enhancing 2 times. And I want to hear this from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers CEO, Orlando. You know, when you look at Kenya, and what would you qualify as the biggest drivers and barriers to Kenya's manufacturing competitiveness today?
So Kenya is like that story that was shared yesterday about a shoe company that was trying to expand in Africa. And so they sent one salesman, and the first salesman found out that the people in Africa do not wear shoes. So he went back with the story and said, guys, these guys don't wear shoes, so there's no market. So they sent another salesman, and this salesman came back and said, this population does not wear shoes. This demonstrates it is a market that we can access. So Kenya is an opportunity. It's an opportunity that we don't see. In terms of manufacturing sector, it is a huge opportunity that we don't see and appreciate. If you look at our history, or maybe the history of the world, or history of the manufacturing growth in the world, there is a time we hated items from China because we counted them as substandard products. But what did the Chinese do? They continued making mistakes, but through their mistakes, they developed and made their products now the best in the world. Kenya has an opportunity to do that. As the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we are focusing on key 4 areas. 1, we are looking at the global competitiveness. Anyone manufacturing in this country needs to be competitive with our counterparts in the region and internationally. So any comparative drivers that inhibit competition, we need to address them. 2, we are looking at market access. Because yes, we will address competitiveness. We will produce the items that we are producing. Where are we going to sell them? So looking at market access is a priority, and government has done a bit of good work in terms of signing agreement to get us those markets. The 3rd thing is about SMEs, SME development. SMEs are a future of any industrialization in any country. They need to be supported. So that linkages needs to work together. The big and the small need to work together. You don't develop the big ones and you leave the SMEs. So our SMEs need to be supported. The last item that we look, or the 4th item we look at, is agriculture for industry. And the CS talked about value chain linkages. Sometimes back we had stories where people are producing tomatoes and tomatoes get spoiled. We end up importing tomato paste from Egypt. We are like, are we serious? Why can't we produce our tomato paste here? So we're encouraging how to link our farmers with the industries for value addition so that we produce a lot of things that we farm in this country and we are able to satisfy the market and also export.
Very good. And thank you for keeping it short and simple. I'll be coming back to the CS, and I really want to find out, the government has come up with a concept of CAIPs, the County Aggregation Industrial Parks. You're going to give us an update on where we are and what is the role of CAIPs in driving Kenya's industrialization agenda. He talked about addressing the barriers to trade, and next to me is a man who has been in this space of textile, leather and textile for many years. Mr. Bedi, you have been operating in the export promotion zones. And when you look at the African growth opportunity, AGOA, it's supposed to come to an end. Sorry? Yeah, it's supposed to come to an end. But thank God, Africa has come up with a new concept, what we call the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which is opening up Kenyan goods to a market of more than 1.4 billion people and an economy worth 1.5 trillion US dollars. So what happens after AGOA? And what do we need to do to deepen trade through the Free Trade Area Agreement?
So I guess you have two questions. One is around AFCFTA and one is around AGOA. Under AFCFTA, I would say the biggest gap is dialogue. Dialogue is the biggest gap because we have 54 countries. And I must congratulate Kenya, ourselves, that we have been in the forefront of all the dialogues, from CS level to the president level, everywhere. And that's the big gap we find as private companies also, that when we go there, the awareness is not there around the ground realities and how to make the rules of origin. So the biggest gap is dialogue, and then in that dialogue, we have the rules of origin, which are complicated, which can be simpler. I always say that we continue to go outward to the countries like US, Europe, UK, UAE, everywhere, asking for market access. But unfortunately, within Africa, we are not giving local market access to ourselves. That's a sad story on ground. Because, for example, if we have 3 transformations which are not happening, so AFCFTA was implemented in Jan 2021, but we can see how much growth has happened. Unfortunately, not much, not relevant, right? So if we had one single transformation with the ideology that we should be creating any job, anywhere in Africa, with that agenda, I think we would have been more successful. Instead of trying to cover everything, like in our sector, apparel textile sector, we want to have 3 transformations. Cotton grown in Africa, textile grown in Africa, garment made in Africa, which is not happening. We have cotton, we can export cotton, and we had good conversation with Waziri also. The cotton is a separate vertical. Africa grows 2.5 tons of cotton every year. Not even a single kg is wasted because it's a cash crop, it can be exported, and that's what now Kenya is doing, looking at cotton as a separate vertical, trying to empower whatever requirements are for that sector and grow it. And that's what we need. And then comes obviously the logistic challenges because the linkages are not there. If we have to export from Kenya to West Africa, it would take from 45 to 90 days. Shocking, right? But we can start with EAC, we can start with neighboring countries and then build on those. So I think the dialogue, rules of origin, which are the key, and the linkages would be our challenge right now. But from Kenya's side, I think we've been progressive. Even the whole ideology of being open to competition is missing. Kenya has that. Kenya is open for business. Kenya is trying to have dialogue with everybody, come and trade here, and we will come and trade there. We have bilateral, exhibitions happening and all that. But unfortunately, across the board, that's not the approach. Everybody's insecure, or that if somebody else will do it, then we'll be left behind. So we need to have conversation around that, have an open mind, focus on not only build made in Kenya and build Kenya, but made in Africa and build Africa. So that's on AFCFTA. On AGOA, there have been a lot of discussions. CS has been leading. He has visited Washington twice. President has discussed this at the top level. We finally have an agreement saying that they will extend it for temporary for 1 to 2 years. Unfortunately, the American government is shut down right now, so not much can be done. But this challenge has now created opportunity for us. CS has been leading the conversations on that. As a sector, we've been leading that. How to now mitigate those costs, what we were talking about, global competitiveness. How and what are the areas, including finance, which he addressed right now, logistics, skill development, and the whole ecosystem development. So if we take that as opportunity and do that cost mitigation, which we are around 20%, higher cost than Asia, which is our competition. I think we'll be right. And it will also open other markets for us. Like currently under AGOA, 98% of our exports are going to US. So there's too much of dependency. We were challenged by the government that why don't we supply to Europe and UK? Unfortunately, we cannot. That's not our market because other countries from Asia, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Egypt, all are duty free. And we are not able to. So the current drive with the government is get that global competitiveness and get ready even beyond AGOA. So that's our endeavor. Thank you.
Very good. And we're also hoping that Kenya will finally get that much awaited agreement between Kenya and the United States finalized soon. You have also talked about Africans not talking to each other. And the problem has always been that in Africa, we talk to each other instead of talking to each other. And there's significant difference when it comes to that. I'll be coming to the CES, but I just want to find out from Dr. Robbie here. You see, when you look at the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, it was launched back in 2008 to deal with the high levels of counterfeit and fake products in the Kenyan market. We have always talked fake products and counterfeits are doing to the Kenyan economy. How many years? Almost 20 years. We're talking about 18 years since ACA was formed. What has been the achievement of ACA in breeding the country counterfeit products and fake products?
Thank you, O'Brien, for that question. To start with, Anti-Counterfeit Authority was started in 2010. The act establishing the authority was enacted in 2008. And I can say without fear of contradiction, the authority has been working closely with the manufacturers, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Indeed, CEO of CAM is part of the ACA board member. To start with, we have been doing three things in terms of leading counterfeiting within the country. The first one is addressing the demand side of counterfeiting. And this one, we do it through creation of awareness. So we have been creating awareness through many campaigns like Fagia Badia, among others, which we are doing with partners like KEM. And number two, through enforcement of intellectual property rights. And this, we do it through either seizure of goods, and this one, we get this information mostly from the owners of IP right, like KEM members. And so far, we have seized a good worth over 4 billion Kenya shillings since our inception. And more so, we also do a bit of destruction. Once we realize that these goods are really counterfeit goods, then they go through entire motion, whether through our court system or through another system we call compounding of offenses. Number two, we also have what we're calling multi-agency framework, where we bring all the players together for purposes of enforcing IP rights, and the CAM is part of that. I'm happy to note that Waziri here is also convening a multi-agency framework even tomorrow, so that we can discuss on how we can be able to address that issue of counterfeiting. Number three, we also deal with the research, because data is very important, particularly for the manufacturers and the government. We generate research and inquiries and other studies. The latest one being done in June this year, where we also shared with KEM, we have also shared with the Waziri, so that we can assist the manufacturers to make decisions at the decision point, because they have to make those decisions to know which are these goods that are being counterfeited mostly and coming into the country. Are you able also to pick it up and do your production within the country? The last one is a program we are having called Recordation Program, started in 2023. And through this recordation program, what we are seeking is to curb counterfeiting at the source, so that we don't have counterfeit good getting to the country. And through this, one of the incentives that we have come up with is to tell the manufacturers who are doing it in Kenya that they are going to do it for free. But outside the country, they're supposed to pay certain amount of money. And that one is also giving a lot of incentive to our internal manufacturers. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. for taking us through that. I want to come back to the CES, but I'll be circling back after the CES to Dr. Sike. Bona CES, if you go back to history back in 1968, when, fresh from independence, and Kenya developed what was known as Session of Paper Number 10, which is still very popular today. And there was a lot of emphasis on Africanization of Kenyans, of Kenya's manufacturing base. Back then, it was largely driven by the colonialist. And one of the ideas was to create the cottage industries in Kenya. And that's how we saw a number of companies, coming up. You come back to the 2007-2008 period, and the government also came up with a session of number 8 on driving SMEs as key drivers of industrialization. And now we're talking about the county aggregation industrial parks. Help us understand how KIPE are going to plug in driving Kenya's industrialization agenda.
So thank you. I think it's good to understand the context with which industry has flowed in the last, say, 3 decades. I would say the period of the structural adjustment programs around 1980s were probably the worst period for the country, because we reversed much of the gains that we had made after independence. There was opening up of borders, importation, and all those things, and that really had a negative impact on the economy. Since then, there has been spirited attempts to reignite Kenya's industrial journey. And I want to say that KIPE is probably the latest, because what you find is, if you want to buy macadamia for export, you would literally have to go to every farm collecting. So we needed an aggregation center where every farmer in Embu or wherever can take their macadamia, sell to somebody. Then that somebody can be able to process or semi-process, package, and when the buyers come, they can probably sell it at double the price. So we are trying to go as low as possible, partly realizing that the difference in value between the commodity and the final product on the shelf sometimes is as high as 10 times more. So the farmer in certain instances gets less than 10%. And that being the case, the motivation to expand agriculture is low and the finances are not available. So the more we are able to create certainty and higher value for our products, whether it is leather, whether you're talking of fresh produce or cotton, the better it is going to be for us. So we are creating one-stop shop, reduce the capital outlay required for you to operate under the KIPEs, and also give the local people a say. Maybe one area that we would want to mention is that one of the biggest challenges we have with third world countries, including Kenya, is that our core products, in this case, maybe tea, coffee, macadamia, their prices are not determined by us. We are subject to price mechanisms from outside. And therefore, today it can be this price, tomorrow it can be the other. And that's why you find, like in this year, the tea farmers are complaining, but the prices are not determined by the countries. So I think what you're trying to do is to get a hold of the pricing of our commodities. Because until you have the pricing in your hands, then you cannot control the value of your commodities. But in conclusion, the KIPEs are a joint venture between the national government and the county governments, and they're aimed at encouraging cottage industries. We have some of them who even have cold rooms to reduce the post-harvest losses that we have had. So if you have harvested your potatoes and the prices are not good, your tomatoes for that matter, you can take them there, and maybe after a month or 2 when the prices are better, you can take them out. We also have what you're calling common user facilities, maybe for packaging, weighing scale, and all those things. You don't need to invest that individually when you're starting your cottage industry. Again, government will support that. So I would say this is probably the closest we have gotten at the grassroots level to encourage industries to come up. And I want to say that other government projects, including the affordable housing, is also aligned to industry, because you're saying if you're doing the 5,000 units you're doing in Nakuru, each with 5 or 10 doors, those doors will be made by some local industries, some local Juakali somewhere. Those hinges, those locks, the tiles now, Kenya is a leading producer of the tiles for the floor, the sanitary ware for Kenya and the region. We are actually commanding that market. So yes, the headlines may not be there on industry, but we are going there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can hear somebody was tempted to clap for the peers. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. I'll be coming back for a round of 3 questions to the team here before we allow them to leave and tour the exhibition center. But I just want to come back to Dr. Wasike. You see, when you look at Kenya's automotive industry, I mean, we are so much into, what do you call things? We don't manufacture cars, we assemble. We're in the assembling business, and don't get so much, out of assembly because you just import and then you come, you fix here, and then you sell. How do we get to a point whereby we can start competing with countries like South Africa, where they have some of the biggest vehicle manufacturing base in Africa? And I have also seen Ethiopia is also coming up strongly, and it makes me feel very bad. I'm sorry to say that. When I see BYD, the Chinese e-vehicle conglomerate, setting up their base in Ethiopia when we are here in Kenya. So how then do we ensure that we capture or we venture into manufacturing of vehicles? And I also want you to respond also the much delayed Kenya automotive policy. What do we need to do to ensure that we have that policy in place to drive vehicle manufacturing in Kenya?
Yeah, thank you. And before I respond to you directly, I want to confirm that we actually manufacture vehicles. We actually manufacture vehicles. I'll come to that shortly. But allow me to first appreciate the Honorable CS and his PS, Dr. Juma Mukhwana. The two of them have been very supportive to the automotive industry. Very, very supportive. In August, the CS joined us in a groundbreaking ceremony in Athi River for 3.1 billion checks, setting up our parts distribution center. I want to confirm, when CS, the construction is still going on. Come November next year, we'll invite you to the official opening of that parts distribution center. And it is so large. It is designed to serve the entire East Africa region. It is massive investment. Secondly, also, I want to appreciate government. In the year 2023, His Excellency the President joined us at Isuzu to launch first ever Sub-Saharan Africa electro deposition paint booth. It's a large paint shop. Vehicles, we can also paint wheelbarrows, we can paint motorbikes, partnerships. We've invested in the future of this country. Now, back to your question. The size of the market annually is 100,000 vehicles. And the CS mentioned earlier, 83% of this market is used. Those vehicles coming fully built and used. Only 70% of this market is new. And out of the 70%, only half, 8.5, are locally assembled. Now, there are 3 levels of manufacturing and assembly for vehicles. Just to clarify, so that you understand that we manufacture vehicles. I want you to be the ambassador of the industry in terms of manufacturing. Now, the first basic level is level 1 for AD. What is the level is from the OEM side, the vehicle is built. The cabin is dressed, it's painted, but it is separated from the chassis. So they two come in different containers. Then that assembly operation, the one I believe you had in mind, is a very simple process. Because basically you just marry the two together. It's a very simple process. Then you go and sell. The second level for cabin involves the cabin, which is painted, but it is not dressed. Inside there are no seats. There's no dashboard. There are no handles. The chassis is also knocked down. It's assembled. It's joined together, and the two are married towards the line. So that's the second level. It's above level 1. Now, the third level, that's where we play, is pure manufacturing. Even with OEMs, the part they use their same process don't come from one place. You go to you get harnesses coming from Vietnam, from around the world, but they are put together in a manufacturing process. Now, at this level, level 3, these vehicles come in completely knocked down. The chassis is put together in a factory, welded, painted in this great paint that we talk about. The seats are prepared locally. We have companies like make cushions, like highway cushions. They supply seats. Batteries are also locally manufactured through the APM. We have leaf springs, yields. They are manufactured by auto ancillaries and springs. It's a large potential of export in the region. Bodybuilding is done by very well-established bodybuilders. Then the chassis, which is completely knocked out. It's in pieces. They come in boxes. We manufacture. We don't assemble. Now, at this level of manufacturing, which Isuzu does, we have close to 100 suppliers. Some of these suppliers have been business more than 40 years. They are doing great work. And this month, of course, for us as Isuzu, we are running the last unit we bring in as fully built, the SUV MUX. Now this month, we are starting logo manufacturing for that unit. So going forward, 100% of our product line will be manufactured at training level. So we do manufacturing, and we want to appreciate the government for the great work we are doing. Now, on the issue of the national automotive and policing, at the Kenya Industrialization Manufacturers, we have a set up for the industry which is driving this policy framework with the input of the players in the industry and the support of the ministry and the chairperson to regularize the automotive industry so that there are such as rules on how the players can, rules on the daily activities of the industry. So that's where we are.